Welcome back to Girl Take the Lead. I'm your host, Gio Canny. Have you ever noticed that some of the biggest changes in our lives begin with a simple question? What if? What if I took the new job? What if I moved to a new city? What if I let go of an identity that no longer fits? The challenge, of course, is that we rarely know how these decisions will work out. We want certainty, we want guarantees, we want to know the ending before we take the first step. My guest today, Wani Iris Manly, decided to do something most of us only dream about. She sold everything she owned and moved from Miami to Paris without knowing anyone speaking the language or having a backup plan. That decision didn't just change where she lived, it changed how she thought about success, purpose, identity, and trust. Today, we'll explore why changes feel so uncomfortable, what keeps us holding on to old versions of ourselves, and why leaving room for life to surprise us may be one of the greatest gifts we can give ourselves. Here you go. So, Wani, welcome to Girl Take the Lead.
Thank you for having me. Thank you to your listeners as well too.
Oh, so great to have you. I think it's going to be so inspiring for anyone who's listening or viewing. Can you start by telling us a little bit about your background?
Yeah, so I am a change expert. I'm also an IP lawyer. I help organizations manage and navigate through organizational change, and on the individual level, I actually help individuals to not be afraid of change and to see change as like the biggest opportunity for their lives, and just to say yes to it.
Yeah. And you've made big changes in your life. Do you want to tell us a little bit about those?
Yes, I feel like I've been so many. So I guess like a first major change for me was like a couple of years ago or several years ago. I actually sold all of my things in Miami, and I moved to Paris. I didn't know a single person. I didn't know one word of French. I had no plan B, A, B, C, D, C whatsoever. And I just, went in there like, just like all completely blindsided. And so yeah, that's been what I was navigating for the last several years. And then now I'm actually navigating completely letting go of being a lawyer and also
Mhm.
just fully stepping into speaking and to, corporate training and things like that. And so that's like a big change for me because it's been an identity for 22 years, but I was actually groomed to be a lawyer since I was 2 years old. Being an American trained attorney, it's very expensive. It's not even like a part of me, like it is me. Like it's like the question, who would you be besides a lawyer? I would have never been able to answer that. So
Uh-huh.
it's quite the identity or the ego death, I like to say it.
So, were you like, did you always know you wanted to be a lawyer when you were a little girl, or how did you first find your path there?
Well, I don't want to say I was forcing, but I was groomed to be. So my background is my family is from Liberia in West Africa, and in African cultures, at least in sub-Saharan African cultures, I don't know about like, the Middle East, North Africa, but you're either one a couple of things. You're either a lawyer, you're either a doctor, or you're either a you work for the government. And so because I don't like the hospitals and I can't send blood, I couldn't do the whole medical thing. My mom's a nurse. But my father was actually Minister of Finance for Liberia when I was quite young. And so I grew up partially in Liberia in the United States. And so, when I was in Liberia, I was like living this like diplomatic like life of like being around like in the executive mansion, which is like the equivalent to our White House, just meeting like heads of state and just being like in the whole international arena of diplomacy and ambassadors and things like that. And so it's just kind of like I was just groomed to kind of take that path. And so I did the whole college thing of majoring in government political science at UT Austin, the international business, studying abroad, living abroad. So it's been my path this entire life.
So, did you just wake up and go, I don't want to be a lawyer anymore? Or how did you come to that change in your path?
It was sort of a process. So in 2001, I actually came across the spiritual path. I was actually kind of going through some difficulties in my life, and I met a friend of mine. He was like a Russian Jew. And he took me to a Kabbalah class, and I took that, and I had like no understanding whatsoever, other than like what they call like correction or like a course correction in Tikkun. I remember that. And then I actually I met a teacher from London. You know, he was raised to be England's like next prime minister. He went to school with Prince Harry and Prince William. And he had tons of money, but then he just kind of came to the realization that there was more to life than just like, sleeping around and, only wearing suits from Harrods. And so he went on this like pilgrimage to India and his world completely changed. He donated all of his wealth and he just kind of like started like, on the path of enlightenment. And he came into my world in Miami. And so I started going to his meditation sessions, or they call
Mhm.
it satsangs in Hindu or Hinduism. And everything began to open up for me in a sense of I had been living, I don't want to say like an austere path, but I was living like the path of like the child of very typical African parents of like education, excellence and like
Mhm.
success and,
Mhm.
high achieving of law. And so there was no room to be creative. And so what ended up happening was like a creative side began to open up for me when I was on the spiritual path of when I started meditating. And I just started like blogging and just started writing about like different topics other than law. And then the whole Paris thing came around. And when I got to Paris, like, I started writing books and so about spirituality, about inspiration. So it's just like a complete different side opened up for me. And that's how, and then I started speaking in Paris actually, because I got picked up by a magazine, an expat magazine. So I started speaking in Paris, like, wait a minute, like, actually, I'm supposed to be doing this. Like, this is what I'm really called to do. And so then I went on that path, but it's been a path of like doing both of them. And
Uh-huh.
the universe is like, no, I want you to stop doing this and do that. So that's the big change that I'm actually navigating now and trusting.
So Paris was just, I can see the creative path there and the art kind of emerged for you, the ability to write, right? And what other things attracted you to Paris?
Gosh, just the beauty, the sheer beauty of it. It is like I don't like kind of cold weather at all, but Paris is just so exceptionally beautiful. It just opened up my creativity. I always like I created so much in Paris. Like what I did there, I could have never done it in Miami. And number one, there was just less
Mhm.
distractions in Paris because I didn't have a beach that I was going to like every weekend or like friends with a boat and you just Miami is like very like lustful, you know what I mean? Whereas I feel like in
Mhm.
Paris, I was just much more because it was such a huge, I mean, I knew nothing. I had to learn how to walk. I had to learn how to talk, how to crawl, how to exist in a totally different world. And so for me, it was like a different way of being that actually emerged. And that well at
Mhm.
the same time, like I was just like super creative. And I was like, wait a minute, like I just my life
Yeah,
is my inspiration. I can
yeah.
my law practice changed in terms of like who I should like work with my clients. And so yeah, it just really opened up a whole different side of me that I don't think I would have ever been able to open remaining here
Mhm.
in the United States.
Well, I wonder sometimes too that if it isn't um, like we need to get some business taken care of in our life so that we can get to that creativity.
Yeah.
Like we spend so much of our life, doing what we're supposed to do, work hard, have those beliefs that you were talking about.
Yeah.
But you came up with something called the change blueprint.
Yes, it's my formula for change that actually came about when I did the TED Talk because for quite some time Yolanda, like the most triggering question to ask me was, "What are you doing in Paris?" And I just had no idea because I was like losing everything left, right, front, and center because everything was just being rewired for me. And so, really, I came across this formula, and it's called the change and changes everything, meaning that in order for your external life to actually change on the outside, or even to, from a corporation's perspective, to manage or to navigate successfully any change initiative, internally, you actually have to change. That
Mhm.
starts with number one, we have to like give up, change gets a bad rap. No matter where I go, wherever I speak of, I always ask, like, what do you think about change? Everybody always says change is hard. Like never, no one's ever really looking forward to it. So number one, we have to divorce our perspectives that are quite negative and quite limited about change in the first place for it to be successful. The second thing is like for the H, it's just like literally going to the letters of change. So the H stands for, deal with your humanness because anytime there's some change or disruption in your life, there's going to be anxiety, there's going to be a fear, there's going to be many fears, fears of loss, loss of identity, loss of status, loss of security, loss of whatever. And so we have to deal with those emotions rather than pretend like they're actually not there. On the
Yeah.
human side, it's quite you just do it, right? But in a
Right.
business setting, I know for me, I was working at a big corporate law firm, and we were always told to shelf your ish, like meaning like when you come to the office, like you're here to work and to perform. You're not here to be emotional, things like that. And so, in a corporate setting, you got to realize it's like changes and just like a technology rollout. It really is you're dealing with how people are responding to that, right?
Yeah.
And then the A stands for like, being adaptive or on an individual level you have to change some level of yourself internally. Like I could not have continued being, like I said, the person I was in Miami was not the same Wani that was actually in Paris because I could not have produced all the output that I did, all the creative projects that I did in Paris, had I been the same person. So at some level, on an internal level, we have to change what is our beliefs, the way we're feeling,
Mhm.
our what our expectations are, whatever the case, but some level of change actually has to happen. And then also to like the end stands for like look at the new opportunities. Whenever there's a change that's coming into our life, by definition, something different is coming into your life. It's not meant, no change or disruption is going to come forth unless you're meant to be on a different path. And so, but the problem is we're so busy like looking at the clothes, like
Yeah.
what we've lost, and oh my God, like this happened. I want this, I want that. And it's like a nostalgia. We're not looking over here at the golden opportunities, right? And it's like right there, and there's many of them. It's not even just one. And then just the E stands for evolution, just evolving, meaning like changes in static. It literally is something you've been doing from the time you were actually born. You're going to continue to do it. I mean, for example, we both slept last night, right? You're not the same
Right.
person you were yesterday from today, from 10 months, we're not the same when we were 3 months old or, trying to crawl or whatever like that. So it is like an evolutionary process. It's not static. And so that's like the whole formula that I've came up for, that's the blueprint for managing change successfully.
I think that is just really helps us, and I can see that resistance around change pops up. Do you think it's like fear, or what do you see now with your clients about that? Like, what's the resistance about?
A lot of it is just fear. It's the fear of, doing something completely different. And also just because we're fighting with our brains, right? Because our brain is just wired to go through what is familiar, even if it sucks, right? It's like when you ask it, why does someone say like in a bad marriage and in bad situations? Because it is what they know. I mean, to the brain, change to it equals death. And it's like I remember like during COVID, I was Googling the fear of death and the fear of COVID. I mean, it was like, and the fear of change. Fear of change is actually like higher than the fear of death. It's like people just are afraid to do something completely different because I guess we feel like we're not going to exist anymore, or it's just going to be like a lot worse. We were always like negatively like future
Oh,
casting,
mhm.
like it's going to be worse than we already had. I'm like, no, it's not. Like life is actually on our side, but it is very difficult, especially like I mean, I can understand like for example like certain types of change, right? Changing like for me, for example, being a lawyer for 22 years, been raised for since age of two to say could do something completely different. And with that, it's just a whole lot of identity, a whole lot of investment of like a six-figure student loan debt. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like, what do you mean I'm not this anymore? And it's like we don't realize it's like you don't completely lose all of those parts of you. You bring all those with you. Like for example,
Yeah.
even if I start practicing law, I'm always going to attract law illegal clients because I always do even when I'm speaking, I'm talking about change. Oh my God, you registered trademarks? Yes. Oh my God, I need you. So it's like it's always coming to me, but it's all part of the divine economy, but it's like, but our brains and our egos and our consciousness isn't really like, seen it as that way.
I also think there's kind of the lack of trust in ourselves
Yeah.
that actually, if we do the work and we go through the change, we can trust the outcome, even
Yeah.
though it may not be what we expected.
Yeah.
We want to control it and not
Yes.
willing to trust.
Yeah.
Yeah, self-trust. I love that because I know for me that's the hardest thing. Like, oh no,
Yeah.
if I do this, this is going to be so bad. But
Yeah.
then no, trust the universe, trust that it's all going to work out. May not be my plan, but it'll
Yeah.
be all right.
Yeah, and the thing is, we have such an attachment to how it's supposed to look and how
Yeah.
long it's supposed to take and what it's supposed to look like. It is like, nope, it's not going to happen that way.
Yeah. But I think we need a bit of naivete to get us started.
Yeah.
Like like I made a big change in my life moving from um, Los Angeles to New York. Okay, so it wasn't Paris, but for me, it looked like Paris because it was so different than what I grew up with. And I had this, oh, it's just going to be great. And, if I can make it there, I can make it anywhere. And when you get there and you don't have enough money
Yeah.
and you have one token to get you through the rest of the week, and you realize, like, what was I thinking? But then we get resilient, right? We
Yeah.
get we get through it and we keep going. But we needed that little bit of naivete that gets us in that direction.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's bumpy, I think, and that's what one thing I hate about social media, like it makes everything look easy. And I'm like, people are lying to you in social media, right? I'm like, anyone who's like just like you see the pictures like I'm like, lifestyle, laptop lifestyle. I'm like, you're not making any money because there's no way you're gonna be focused. Like we're like a
Yeah.
$1 million company, like on a beach like that. But it's like, yeah, we do need that, but it is bumpy. I always tell people like, yeah, you're gonna have to jump and you will fall sometimes, a couple of
Yeah.
times, a lot of times. And it's like you said, we're building that resilience muscle within us. And for me, I remember there were those times in Paris where I felt like I was like banging my head against the wall because I had lost everything. At the time I was doing securities law and I had like 5 clients. That's all I was, and I had these were like bread and butter dream clients. Like one would like put money in my bank account and the firm's bank account, and I wouldn't even know that he would just send me an email. The CEO, he was like, "Hey, Wani, we need X, Y, and Z. If it's not enough, like call John." Like it was, and it was always like way and more than enough money. But then when they saw me, he saw me on LinkedIn. He's like, "Yeah, I think we just want a lawyer just is practicing law and not like writing books and things like that." So, and I was like, "What am I doing?" And so I realized for me, I came with the mantra of, "It's not working. It's not an option."
Oh,
You know,
that's so good.
yeah, like this has to work. I mean, theoretically, I could have always moved back to the US, but it's like, I mean, I had sold my place, I had sold the car. It's like there was
Yeah.
nothing left to go back to. So for me, it was, this is going to work. Like I didn't come this far just to come this far and like to be stuck and to be struggling, things like that. But I was like, yeah, it's not working, it's not an option. So that's how I operate. And I realized I've always been operating like that without having, I never have a plan B for anything. I never have in
Yeah.
my life. Yeah.
Yeah. Resilience, man. That's a great definition. There's no option. This is it. We're going to get through this. So, back in the day, success looked like probably becoming an attorney, like you did, or achieving at some level in a corporation. How do you think we should redefine success now?
Well, I'll tell you early on, for me, I don't know, if there's something about me. I've always never have subscribed to society's definition of success. I've always like been beating like my own drum, like whatever that saying is. And I think
Uh-huh.
it's because I grew up as an only child. And so there's not this like competition like other siblings in the house. But when I was 6 years old, I said two things. I said that I wanted to live between Europe and the United States, and that I wanted to have 3 homes that I could live around seasonally. And the adults around me like laughed at me, right? And I get it. Like I'm in Africa, and I'm just like saying is like, what are you talking about? You've never lived in Europe before. And so, but I've done that. I live in Spain, I live in Italy, I now live in France. And so for me, it was always like that little girl telling me this is the path that we're on. And obviously we're gonna have to fund this thing, you know what I mean? Is it gonna be $1 million or like I don't know, you know what I mean? But for me, even though I did the law thing, that was always for me like what the definition of success I was chasing. That's
Mm-hmm.
for me, like, I mean, if I had to be in the United States like 100% of the time, that would be death for me. That would
Mm-hmm.
not be successful for me. And so I always tell people you have to find out for you what success means for you, because I think, and it with social media, like it just kind of aggravates because we're all chasing like somebody else's, a curated like, highlight reels. And so, but I always like to share with everyone what gave a profound impact on me was John Lennon's assignment where the teacher asked them to write, what do you want to be in life, right? And everybody wrote, I want to be a lawyer, I want to be a doctor, I want to be, some like, esteemed profession. And he wrote, I want to be happy. And the
Oh,
teacher came back to him and said, you didn't understand the assignment. He said, no, I did. He goes, you just don't understand life.
Hmm.
And so when I read that, for me, I don't have any tattoos, but if I did, like that would be like on because it's within my DNA. It's like for me, it's like whatever makes me happy, I chase that. That's my
Mhm.
definitions of success. No matter it may not look like what the world says it is, but yeah.
Well, Wani, I think that's a great place for us to give our viewers and listeners some great nuggets to chew on and think about in their own life. And is there anything else you'd like to cover with them before we end our episode?
Yeah, I would say, you know what? It's okay to choose the easy path. For some reason, and I think this whole conversation about resilience because everyone's talking about it and I've been living that, but I also realize, you don't get brownie points for making life difficult. There's nothing wrong if it's easy. There's nothing wrong if you're privileged. There's nothing wrong if someone helps you out because I realize it's been difficult, it's been challenging because I chose that path. And it's like, for what? Like, what am I trying to prove? And a lot of ourselves are trying to prove our worthiness to receive something. And it's like, no, it's like, you know what? It can be easier.
Mm, love that. Um, I was just doing some work on a value of an unhealthy value, and it's kind of this transactional worth. I love this idea that I am only worthy if I'm doing. So
Mm-hmm.
the body is kind of like this mechanism, like this object.
Yeah.
And um, that idea of worthiness related to transaction, oh man, that's huge. It's like I wanted that would be my tattoo, like not sign transactional worthiness
Yeah.
because we're always worthy.
Yeah.
Oh, and that happiness, like pursuing the happy path for
Yeah.
you. Oh, man. Anyway, thank you so much for that inspiration. I think our viewers and listeners are going to be inspired like I've been. How can they find you, follow you? And I know you've got a treat for them that I'll have in the show notes.
Yeah, so they can follow me. I'm on LinkedIn. They can also follow me on Instagram at the lovely Wani, and then also on Facebook. It's always my first and last name. And so I do have a PDF for them, which is exactly like the formula of what the blueprint actually is. And so I gave it to you for you to actually download it
Yeah.
and just reach out. I'm very accessible and I love meeting and talking with people. So yeah.
And okay, so the question I ask all of our guests,
Mhm.
what would you tell your 20 something self today, Wani?
It would be that. It doesn't have to be hard.
It doesn't have to be
It
hard.
doesn't have to be hard because that's it's just like I've been taking an easy path and like based on what you were just saying, one of the things I realized was like, rest, a mantra that came up for myself is rest is productive and highly profitable.
Mm,
Because as a lawyer, it's like we're just like normal like a workhorse. Like you just it's rare to find like a lazy lawyer, but it's like you're right. It's like it's the transactional worth type thing. And I would say don't edit it out, please, because I think it's very valuable. It's like, yeah, it's like it doesn't have to be that hard. You can take
yeah.
you can choose the easy and trust the easy button.
I like that too. Maybe that's on the other arm for the
Yeah.
tattoo. Easy.
Yes.
Easy's good. And I know you got a chance to go to our online store and you picked something, which I have actually getting in the mail to you today.
Oh,
So
thank you.
yeah, you can tell our folks. I I don't, a lot of people don't pick that one, and it was really interesting for you to have that one picked because the sentiment says, let life surprise you," and that was like I went, that was perfect for you. I could see you choosing that one.
I'm quite surprised, like, it's not very well, it's not a lot of people choose it because I mean, to me, it was just so striking. It just really caught such a beautiful girl. They were all beautiful, but for me,
Thank
like,
you, Wani.
very striking. You're welcome. And so, because I tend to like look for other things that's very striking, and it spoke to me because I think we're all such control freaks, right? Like we're saying control the journey. And so it's like, leave some room for life to surprise you, especially like when things aren't going your way, whenever there's like a struggle, whenever there's just like friction. It's like, you know what? God's got this. It's like, he or she created like the entire universe. It doesn't need your help. Like relax a little bit. And so for me, it was like a perfect reminder to always like look and say, you know what? Let life surprise you today. You'll
Uh,
be surprised. Yeah.
well, well, thank you so much again for joining us. Such a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and thank you for the gift.
Thank you, Wani, for reminding us we don't always have to know the destination before taking the first step. One of the things that stayed with me from our conversation was the idea of leaving room for life to surprise us. How often do we spend our energy trying to predict what will happen or trying to control the outcome when some of the most meaningful moments in our lives arrived in ways we could never have planned? Maybe the invitation isn't to have fewer questions. Maybe it's to become a little more curious, a little more trusting, and a lot more open to possibilities we can't yet imagine. If you'd like to connect with Wani, download her free change blueprint framework or learn more about her work. You'll find all of those links in today's show notes. And if this conversation resonated with you, I'd love for you to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who's standing at the edge of a change in their own life. Our next episode will be a soundbite. We'll stay with this conversation a bit more and explore the cost of control. Yummy, right? Why do we work so hard to control outcomes? What are we really trying to protect? And what might become possible if instead of certainty, we practice compassionate curiosity? Such a good topic. Until next time, keep leading and leave a little room for life to surprise you. Talk to you soon. Bye.